First off, before we begin the session, I would like to thank Srinidhi and Wazifa for organizing this session, and of course, Ms. Nawal and Ms. Joanne at PWC for bringing us all together over here, and not to mention Ms. Maha and Mr. Nicholas for giving us their time, to help us out this session, the first session of TAMID, which is Introduction to Consulting. So a little bit of brief about Ms. Maha and Mr. Nicholas for the guys, the members who have joined here. So Mr. Both of them combined have over, I would say, 29 years of experience, across the consulting sector. So Mr. Nicholas, I would say I would go on a limb and say that he's a veteran in the tourism industry, and and Ms. Maha has, garnered considerable experience with E&Y and then moved on to PWC. So yes, we are really blessed, to be, graced by their presence over here. And before let's begin the session, and I hand it over to Ms. Maha and Mr. Nicholas to take it forward. Thank you. Before begin, I would like to request all the members to join the camera, please. That would be great. Yeah. Thank you, guys. All right, over to you.
This is where we start, yeah?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. Maha, would you like to start with a slightly more detailed introduction of yourself, so just that people see a little bit your career track, because that may be actually useful for them as well?
Sure. So good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Maha Tajdeen. I'm a senior manager with PWC. I've been doing consulting for about 12 years now, just over 12 years. And what might be interesting for you all is that I actually joined consulting as a fresh graduate. So right out of university, I went into consulting. It's what I've been doing this whole time. It's all I know. And it's been a great ride. So I'm very keen to share some of my experience with you and to help you maybe decide if this is something that you would be interested to jump into as well, right out of college or university.
Awesome. So good afternoon to all of you. It's a pleasure to be with you. So my name is Nick. By the way, Mr. Nicholas is my father, so I always cringe when you say that. So my name is Nick. I am indeed a veteran. So I've just hired last year the first person that was born when I already worked at PwC, which had me limping back home and feeling slightly old at that time. So I'm just coming on 21 years with PwC. I did actually not join out of industry. I studied hotel management, and I was supposed to actually be a hotel general manager by now. So I did my first 5.5 years with a company called Ritz-Carlton at a time where that was being built up. Then moved into the audit practice of PwC, was an auditor for 7 years, and then moved into the consulting practice, where I built up our firm's capability in advising clients on hospitality and tourism themes. Today, I have two roles. I'm a partner with the Middle Eastern firm, and I am PwC's global lead for hospitality and tourism sector industry. So all my clients are basically where other people go vacation. But yeah, I mean, I also think super happy to share with you very few things that you could ask me that I would not be comfortable in answering. So please go ahead. This is your chance to win or to lose. And otherwise, look, I'm still here after 21 years. So obviously I like my time in consulting, but I'm very happy to also speak about it critically. Abi Marani, how should we work this? You've given us like 20 minutes for talking about, what is consulting, 20 minutes about the day in the life of a consultant, if only I knew, and then 20 days for Q&A. Should we stay with this general structure?
No, that's totally up to you guys. I'm sure you can add on to this and modify the structure even better. So this is just for you guys to just understand as to how what we want you guys to speak about in general. So it's just an introduction to consulting session. So you can take it forward from here the way you see it fit.
So one of the key skills of a consultant is the ability to improvise, because Maha and I haven't actually aligned on this call, so we're just going to make it up as we go. And second element of consulting is, if you don't know how to do it, somebody else will. So I'll put Maha right away and say, Maha, would you like to share from your experience a little bit what you believe that our colleagues here on the phone that may be considering going to consulting, like the top 3 or 4 things that they should know about consulting as a career choice or as an early career choice, perhaps, right? Because you're closer to it. I mean, I started in consulting I started with PwC at a time where there was no internet yet, so different view.
Sure, absolutely. Actually, why don't I start before I do? Let me maybe open the floor to you guys and ask you what do you understand by consulting? What comes to mind when you think of consulting?
I would go with solving problems.
Okay, excellent. Any other takes?
I could try. It's about understanding the business's problems and analyzing the environment and like finding a way ahead.
Excellent. All right.
I would like to add on to that point where consultants also they provide advice to companies, based on companies like the goals that they've set for themselves, so I mean that's also a role that the consultants perform.
Excellent. I think all these answers are like on the spot. So consulting is basically, we have a bunch of clients. We work for other organizations. They could be in multiple sectors. They come to us. Basically, they have specific objectives in mind, or sometimes problems they want, or challenges that they would like help with. And they come and basically ask us for our advice to help them sort of achieve those objectives and overcome their challenges. This is in a nutshell what consulting is. And sometimes it's to solve existing issues, sometimes it's to work towards things that they're aspiring to achieve. And this consulting can basically be in many different domains. I forgot to say this when I was doing my introduction, but I focus on people consulting. So anytime a client has a question related to, or wants to work on anything related to people, their engagement, how to develop them, how to retain them, how to motivate them, anything to do with that, that's when they approach someone like myself, and we basically are able to give them different solutions. It could be a new organization structure, it could be a new competency framework, it could be a compensation structure, whatever they need to be able to sort of overcome their challenge or meet their objective. And something that's very important with consulting is that there's never a one-size-fits-all solution. It's very important to really understand the client, their specific needs, their specific issues, their specific culture. Every organization has a unique culture, a unique maturity level. This is unique to the organization, but different regions as well, they operate very differently. The way the Middle East runs is going to be very different to clients working in Europe or in the United States. Maturity is different, the culture is different. Having said that, an organization in Egypt might function very differently to an organization in KSA. So whenever we're coming up with these solutions, it's very important for us to understand these different factors, that impact the organization culture, the sector. When you're working with a sector maybe in tourism, it's very different to maybe an engineering entity or somebody in food and beverage. You know what I mean? So whenever we're coming up with these solutions, it's very important for us to dig deep, understand the sector very well, to be able to give a solution that is relevant for the client. Because at the end of the day, we never want to give the client a deliverable that they're just going to put in the drawer and never look at again. For us, a very important measure for us as consultants is that what we give to the client is implemented. We want to make sure they can implement it. It's a feasible solution. So the more we're able to understand the problem and the objective, and the more we're able to give them a solution that works for them, this is what makes our exercise as consultants a successful one. Yeah? Nicholas, would you like to add anything to what I just mentioned?
I think that's very fair, and perhaps also going back to when we quickly asked you, what you thought about consulting. I think the single biggest skill set that a consultant must have is a deep desire to serve and to be useful, right? We are not the stars. The stars are our clients. We are here to make them look good. We are here to make them succeed. We are here to help them progress their projects, their careers, and with that comes their little livelihood and their families and etc. indirectly. So what you must, I find that very easy, but I know many people that say, well, no, that's not what I want. That's perfectly fine. The consultant is the guy or the lady in the shadow. If things go well, your client shines. If things go bad, you go in front and you take the hits for him and give him another day to fight. And that sounds very noble, blah, 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 etc. But first of all, you got to really love it, right? There's a reason why I originally went in hospitality. I like that. And now I do it in consulting, but I still do the same thing. But I know also a lot of people that feel, no, I want to be in the spotlight, or I wish to be the one that commandeers others, right? So when you have this image, and we're all on these websites, I love them, consulting memes, etc., and so on. There's always like, what other people think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what I really do, and so on, what society thinks I do. You will only have a fulfilling and successful career if service comes first in your mentality. And there's a very big difference between being a service professional and being a servant. There's nothing demeaning, and our clients do not treat us demeaningly. But it is something you've got to prepare for, a life of basically making other people shine. I like that, but I know many people that don't. The second reaction I had on what Maha very rightfully said, I think that's very important to understand. Consulting is a meta category that probably has, 40, 50, 60 subcategories and the matching companies therein, right? So, McKinsey is consulting, PWC is consulting, Insignia branding is consulting, Accenture does a phenomenal technology consulting. There is specialized consulting in every area. So when somebody says, I want to go in consulting, I'm like saying, well, first of all, well done. But second of all, you basically just said you want to join the economy. Like, that's good, but that's probably not very helpful as a decision maker, right? So certainly one recommendation that I would make to you as you evolve in your assessment of the sector is you need to understand the various companies. So there's big animals like ours, right? The big fours. So I think there's certain phenomenal advantages of being part of a $46 billion company with 250,000 people across 176 nations, and there is some beautiful advantages of being part of Insignia with one office in Dubai, but is considered the most niche, competent hospitality brand consultants in the region. And you may love one, and they're both consultants, but they have very different business models. So understanding the organizations, the area they play in, the models, etc., that's something that you should really also try to onboard in your assessment of whether this is a profession that you would find satisfaction and success in. It's huge. I can probably list 150 companies that are consulting companies if I had a whiteboard. So please be aware of that differentiation. Let's stop here and ask you guys questions. Let me make it very easy for you guys. If you don't have questions at this point, you may not actually be very prone to being a good consultant, because consultants ask constantly questions. What do you mean about this? How do you do this? When are we going to do this? What's the budget? What's the timeline? Would you consider this? Who else do we need to speak of? Do we have stakeholders to consider? Boom, 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 boom. So if at this point you don't have a natural desire to ask that question, maybe you're shy, in which case I don't want to push you. But if you're not shy and you don't have any questions, maybe investment banking is more for you. There you need to close your eyes. Go ahead, someone. I can wait here all day.
Sure, I'll take the first shot, and I like the comparison between I like the comparison between investment banking and consulting, though, as we get back to that later. But my first question being, you talked about the skill sets. So I have two questions actually. So you talked about skill sets required to be a consultant. So for the benefit of the new joinees and the old ones as well of TAMID, we'd like to elaborate on what skill sets you require, like in terms of, let's say, education to be a consultant in the big fours, or let's say even in the MBBs.
It would suck if I said that an MBA is useless, right? Because no, not at all. It is not. Maha, tell me, because you are closer to your academic career, even though you've been out for a while as well. But what are the skill sets that you brought from your background that were useful, and what did you have to acquire afterwards because you didn't have it?
Okay, I think this is a bit of a funny question. Me myself, I studied something related to this. I studied HR and business. I knew what I wanted to do, and I studied that. But actually, in consulting, you'll find people with many different backgrounds. We have so many different engineers. Recently, we hired somebody that's a nutritionist. Okay, studied nutrition at university. So what I'm trying to say is that I think from an academic perspective, to get into consulting, it's good to have, if you studied something that's relevant to the type of consulting that you're going to do, that would be very useful. If you're somebody with an engineering background, the analytical thinking is very useful for consulting. But it's something that I think the practical experience that you get, that's where most of the value lies. I think that's my response to that. So I wouldn't necessarily want to focus only on academic, as long as you understand generally business, what it is. You have that analytical thinking, you understand different components when it comes to business. But there's so many skills that you learn on the ground that could be more relevant, I think. And maybe we can jump into that. Nicholas, what do you think? Some of the other skills
Yeah,
that are important.
absolutely. I mean, so I had never prepared myself academically to join a consulting organization, right? So I had a business, I went to Cornell School of Hotel Administration. So it is a business school, but with a strong operative hospitality focus as well. And believe it or not, well, actually it's easy to believe, I don't even have an MBA. I'm not even sure I have a master because mine was pre-Bologna. But let me share a little bit with you what I'm observing also, because I recruit between 30 and 40 people a year. It does not really matter what you have studied. It is how you have learned to study and how you have learned to look at information. So one core skill, I believe, of a consultant that probably holds true for most disciplines is to start with the client's specific circumstances and then understand that they are usually the combination of the dynamics of the business and the dynamics of that company, right? So there's certain constellations at a client that are given by the business model of the client, retail or financial services or hospitality, etc. And then there's another layer that is being overlaid by. Sorry, I'm just right there. And then there's another layer that is basically done by, well, how does a company work within that industry? Are they dynamic? Are they agile? Are they control driven? Are they entrepreneurially driven? Are they from which cultural background do they come? Germans business very separate, differently from etc. So on. So one skill set is, or one thing for your toolbox that you may wish to do is to understand how to look at organizations and how to look at industries. So without going into a lot of detail, but basically if you look at my hospitality industry, just to give you a very quick illustration of what I mean by that. So part of the industry, me in hospitality, is I know that there's always three players that are present. Somebody that owns the hotel asset, somebody that operates it, and somebody that brands it, right? So that's the business side. You need those three, and then you need a few more. And then I know separately from that, that Marriott, for example, is a very controls-driven company, whereas Accor is a very, trust and let go company. Taj, to put something in your context, is one that favors service over everything, sometimes even over profit, which is not always good, right? But you know those things because you read, and then you overlap them, and then you can unpack it and say, fine, how do we solve it, right? That's a skill set I think that you need. The second skill set, and maybe Maha may disagree with me because she's in a different field, but I always feel if there's one weakness I see with almost all of our graduates that come is insufficient mastery of financial and accounting. Now, accounting is not a sexy class. I mean, I was an auditor for 6-7 years. I never felt sexy. I still don't feel sexy, but hey, that's age coming, right? But I never enjoyed accounting. But I did enjoy tremendously sitting in front of my clients and saying, all right, that's how it's going to look in your balance sheet, in your financial statements, in your disclosures, in being able to read financial statement, in able to understand transactions. So this entire area of corporate finance, accounting, governance, controls, you will need it every day of your life, or at least I need it every day of my life. So that's the second element. I think, any finance you can do, because if you don't know finance, the guy who does now know finance will beat you every time in an argument. and money makes the work go round. So there's no bunch around that. Lastly, when I look at my new hires, and this may be, but I don't want to over generalize. I have a feeling that my younger new joiners don't read enough, don't spend enough time in reading or getting information. Now, when I say read, I don't care whether it's reading or podcast or webcasts or whatever, but you don't become a specialist in your area by reading Twitter or by reading a summary that is posted. You become a specialist by taking that one, saying, what's the footnotes in that report? And then go read that footnote and then the footnote, right? That's how you get depth and breadth. So I created the most hated program I created for my teams, and hopefully otherwise they're fun, is I'm assigning book reports like back in middle school. And those are, guys like you, MBAs, top 20 schools, multi-culti, global, etc. But I am behind them like if they were my 15-year-old teenage daughter and saying, what are you reading this week? Did you read this one? Why did you not read it? What did you think of it? What about the book last year? So I feel that the availability of information, mainly the digital availability, has actually taken away depth. Theoretically, we have the largest library in the world at our fingertips, but I think because it's there, people think that they don't have to structure their learning post-education. The constant source of information. So read, understand the industry, understand business modeling, understand finance. That's what you probably want to start having to bring in. And then there's things you learn, right? You don't need to be, remember, that's something that's very important. I've been doing this for 20 years. I was not remotely capable of even externalizing what I'm telling you now 20 years ago. For the first 5 years of my career at PWC, I was convinced they made a mistake and they were going to find out any moment and I was going to be let go, right? So be careful when you speak to senior executives. That's not where we started, right? Now we've practiced it for 20 years. We've gotten our, we fell on our nose 50 times a year. And so, but you don't need to be there. You need to take those small steps there and don't put too much pressure on you, but try to follow these elements. That's probably going to be helpful regardless of what you do. Maha, I give you a right of repartee to see whether I have forgotten or exaggerated something.
No, I think everything you mentioned is on the spot related to the acumen perspective. On top of that, other core skills I think that are relevant for consulting. So I think creativity is actually something that's becoming more and more important, especially to the point where I mentioned that we need to sometimes be a bit, the kind of solutions that we offer, they need to be customized to the client. That sometimes requires an element of creativity there. And I don't know about you, Nicholas, but I think from consulting, we all prepare nice slides, presentations, our deliverables have to be packaged nicely. And I think that requires also a good ability to be creative and to visualize information in a way that will be appealing to the user that's reading it and will also help them to sort of use it properly. We talked about analytical skills, technology, to be able to do, things like data analytics and be able to utilize some of the new technologies coming in is becoming more and more relevant as we're trying to sort of up our services. So even in my line of work, sometimes I get involved into software development. Maybe I'm not a programmer, I'm not going to design the software, but I need to be able to sort of give some sort of direction. Other technologies, AR, VR, how can we integrate it all just to, again, up our services? And I would say these are mostly the technical things. Maybe we can talk a bit about the people or the softer skill sets. Do you agree, Nicholas?
Well, first of all, I do agree. Does that mean you want me to talk about it or you?
No, we can both. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything else technical that needs to be mentioned.
No, I think technically you're about there. And of course, right, as you will understand, if you go in a very specialized part of consulting, then there may be additional specialized skills. So if you go into, I don't know, Salesforce implementation consulting, which is a brilliant business to be in if you're good at Salesforce, well, then it helps if you know Salesforce. But I think that's more specialization.
Yeah. So maybe from the more softer sides, obviously we're dealing with people every single day. Sometimes clients can be extremely difficult, and we really need to be able to manage them effectively, be patient, be emotionally intelligent, and not try to get on their bad side. We need to try to get them to cooperate as much as possible, because that's what we need. We're also working with different teams from different backgrounds, different ages. That also requires an ability to work well with people. And something that's more and more important, I'm realizing, is the ability to be agile and pragmatic. And this also enables you to sort of, things are not going to always be structured 100%. And that also relates back to clients. Like, I'm right now working with a client, I'm supposed to have a schedule and that's how I can work, but I don't have that. I'm having to sort of, let them lead the path a little bit and modify the way we're doing things to be able to suit their needs. So that requires sometimes an ability to sort of think outside the box a little bit and be a bit agile. Dealing with pressure is an important one. Sometimes we have days where the workload is crazy. A lot of us will try to manage that because we do respect, work-life balance. We all want that for ourselves, but there are days where there are, that pressure is there, and we need to be able to sort of cope and keep morale high within ourselves and within our teams. I think that's another important soft skill right there.
I'm very, uncertain about, so especially in the last years, if you're on LinkedIn or stuff like that, right? So there's a few, I'm not even sure that they are buzzwords, but a few concepts that pop up a lot. And one of them that comes around there is always this notion of leadership, right? As if you were capable of reading 3 books and then you say, I choose leadership style B for me, and now I am perfect, right? And I'm always a little bit skeptical about the oversimplification of how you become a leader, right? And I still don't know, by the way. And I was a sergeant major in the army. I was a Boy Scout. I am now leading a big business unit, etc. I'm still not sure that I've got it right, but there is something there, perhaps less clean than LinkedIn makes you believe it, is that you must feel comfortable in developing teams, working in teams, and working in an environment where we jointly push each other to become better. And sometimes that means coaching, sometimes that means feedback, sometimes that means ordering, because yes, it's not a very, a very contemporarily sexy term, but sometimes I just order my teams to do something because I say, now we don't have time for long discussion. Now it's execution, and we'll discuss about it later. But at the same time, and I think that's what Maha very correctly say, is it's easy. It's actually very, very easy to lead teams if you don't care that you burn them and they leave after 2 years. Very easy, super easy style of management. Just not very sustainable nor very pleasant, right? So the ability to constantly be in this rebalancing of private needs, your own private needs, your team's private needs, your client's needs, the uncertainty and constant change that there is in our clients, that is something that you don't need to know how to do this yet. You never say, now I know. It's like you learn for your entire life. And I just made a mistake yesterday and I'm saying, I'm going to do that one differently. But I think you need to be comfortable that this will be a permanent presence in your daily work. And it absorbs time. It absorbs emotions, because hopefully you're not a psychopath, but you actually care what happens to your people. It can create irritations. It also creates great moments of success. If one of your team members is successful, is almost like having a third baby. It's like you're very proud of them as well. But I know people, again, and there's no shame in that, as long as you are clear about it yourself. There's people that are not good at working with other people. I mean, everybody has to work with some people, but we're a people business. 50%, 60% of the time I deal with actually don't have to do with content, has to do with my people, right? So if you say, so if you hated group assignments at school, don't become a consultant, because it's still the same. You got the one that is the overachiever. There's the one that doesn't show up. There's the silent one that actually does a lot of good work. There is the one that doesn't bring a lot of good contributions, but he pays for the drinks at the end of the evening and he goes to the photocopy center. And fundamentally, and that's why they make you do group exercises, right? They know that. I mean, all schools know that, right? They could just come in and say, I'm going to grade you individually, but that's where you get your first basis knowledge of working in large teams. If you come away from every single group exercise and say, I hate it and I don't care, and I just would rather do it myself, etc., don't go to consulting, because that's going to be your life for the next 50 years, because you guys don't get to retire at 65 like us guys. Maha, that was a long excurse of the two of us, mainly me. We'll pause here and again invite you guys to ask a question.
Actually, I would like to ask a question.
Mhm.
Is being a consultant more of a specialist kind of job or generalist kind of job? Like, would the consultant be jack of all or master of one?
Spontaneously, I would say, so there's probably several paths, right? Because if you join into a very specialized consulting company, I work with a company that is specialized in geospatial drone surveying consulting. Well, all right, so that's a small piece, right? So there you have to become a specialist. Whereas in other larger ones, you can come in as more as a generalist. If I had to share my view of, but is it just a view? Is an opinion, right? That's not a fact, not even a PWC fact. I think you should go into a generalist field first. Allow the world to show you what there is around. I mean, there were professions that I discovered in my 20s I didn't even know existed when I was at university, right? So learn a little bit about understanding industry and everything and consulting, then pick one, specialize for a few years, and then you have a bifurcation. You either want to become the most specialized expert that there is, which is a beautiful career, or you say, I want to move on back into general management, in which case you need to say, I have my specialty, I let go of it, or I don't deepen it any further, and I become broader again in my overall skill set, which leads me to general management. So there's several paths. What I've just described is what I think I've seen working often very well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I want to ask a question, and it's a very general question. But if I was a business owner and I hire a consultant about supposedly about my marketing strategy or a business problem in general, and I reveal everything to you. But is there a clause for consultants to not go and go to one of my competitors and be one of their consultants?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So clients often try to ask for clauses like this. We usually don't accept them. Now, there's two layers, right? So there's the layer of confidentiality. I will never tell one of my clients, Mercedes, I just was at Toyota last week and they're doing the following. That does not happen, not even in behind closed doors. At the same time, what does happen is the clients come to us and say, I want the more specialized person possible for my problem. Saying, well, how do you want me to get specialization if I can not work for the industry, right? So usually they accept that we work for competitors, that we are capable of protecting confidentiality, and that we share learnings from the industry in a way that does not betray business secrets. That's usually how it works out. Then there's a few special cases. So I never go, for example, help a client to go against another client, right? That's just basic decency. You can't take somebody's money and shake hands and go for a dinner and then switch side of the street and say, let me tell you how to go to them. So we have very strict independence rules. But more importantly, like before I actually get to submit an offer, I go through 2 or 3 levels of panels with my fellow partners that challenge me and say, are we comfortable? Is this ethical? Is this going to get us into trouble? Is etc. So by the time we're out there, we have a pretty clear view that we're okay. But your point is very well taken, Rishab. It is a discussion that happens over and over. We've picked our point. And I know other consultants that say, well, listen, if you can assure my livelihood for the next 10 years, you give me me and my team $10 million a year for the next 10 years, then happy to sign an exclusivity term.
Thank you.
whatever the next question is, Maha is going to answer it. So let's see.
I had a question. Hi, Maha. Hi, Nicholas. Thank you for your time.
Hi.
First of all, my name is Sanskriti, and I'm at my sophomore year at SPGen. So, if, for example, I have in my mind clear that after I graduate, I want to get into consulting, how do you think I can build on my profile or maybe skills over the next 3 years so that by the time I graduate, I know I can get it straight away into the industry, or how I have an edge over other people who apply at the same company?
Yeah, I think for me, I would suggest this is something I tell a lot of people that are considering this field, but maybe try to learn more about specific areas. Data analytics, if you come in very skilled at performing, data analytics, visualization, Power BI, using these tools comfortably, that's very good. If you know what kind of consulting you want to do, I would also suggest to use this time to sort of build, maybe get a certification in something that would, enable you to come in with that extra level of information about something. And if you have the opportunity to do any internship, that would also be very relevant as well, because you will come in prepared somehow to do this kind of a job. And just make sure your skills relating to report writing, Microsoft Office, these things is up to scratch. That would also be very relevant, I think.
Yeah, reading, again, I'm coming back to this one, and I really mean, developing viewpoints, because in your interviews, when they're going to come, right? When I interview my people, actually interested in saying, well, I know that there's lots of stuff you don't know, because if you knew everything, I'd hire you for my position, right? And I don't know everything. But what I want to see is that my new grads have viewpoints, right? What do you think about this? What do you read into this economically, right? I mean, whatever. You should be a walking Wednesday afternoon pub trivia. You should know what's going on economics. So, here's first assignment: read The Economist every week. It is boring as hell. It doesn't have many pictures, but this was an assignment my professor has given me. I've ignored him for the first 5 years. I regret it. I since apologized to him. I read The Economist every week, because reading The Economist once per week probably gives you the first level gut feel of what's going on in the world right now. Everything is connected to everything. So it's actually really, really important. So yeah, first advice, what can you do? Read The Economist every week. I'm sure the school has a group subscription to it. Talk to a lot of people, don't ask people like me, right? Simply because, and I'm not being modest or anything like that, but I joined I joined PWC in 2001, and I joined it at a different time, and it's been an awful long time ago, etc. So go speak to people that joined a year ago, 2 years ago. Say, what was your experience been? What have you felt? Because I feel everything is going wonderfully in my team of new joiners, because of course, they'd rather die than let me know that they don't know something. I always got to pride them and say, well, let me help you, right? So that's probably what it is. Read The Economist, know a lot of stuff about a lot of stuff. I really agree with Maha. I don't see any field of consulting in the next 20, 30, 40 years that is not going to need professionals with a strong digital analytics capability. It's just, the times of, reading a book in the library and then creating a benchmark, this is gone. Our clients are super, super smart. I have no dumb clients. I have clients that don't have time. I have clients that don't have neutrality. I have clients that want a second opinion. I have highly political clients, but I don't have a dumb client. So they're going to be ready for you, and you've got to match. So yeah, digital, very important.
Exactly. If you're interested in programming, I think that's something that's very relevant and a skill that you can pick up on the side. And it will help you sort of up the service level, I think.
Next question. I can flip it around, guys. I'm really good at that. So let me actually flip it around. Pick at somebody random. This is almost like the roulette. Sorry, so I'm not picking on anyone because I don't know none of you. But Vamika Aurora, hi, how are you? Why did you join the session today? What can I do for you? What can I tell you that would be useful for you to make this half an hour worth it?
I think I joined because I wanted to. We always heard of consultancy as being something like problem solving, and I just wanted to get to know if I am that kind of a person who would get into that. And
that you might not be, or
I'm realizing I might not be.
Why?
Because, as you said, I'm not very good at asking questions. So I might be creative, but I have to think a lot to get to a point where I'm able to solve problems differently. So, yeah.
Thinking is good though.
No, that's true. But I thanks, Sarah. First of all, I think that's a really, how to say, it's a really good self-awareness to have. There's still, by the way, but we can talk about this one later. There's still plenty of jobs within consulting. Not everybody needs to be the hyper extrovert. How to say, kind of like, fast talker. Like I know I am, right? I have other weak points, but I know I can talk my way of pretty much out of any situation. I actually do know my stuff, so that's a well. But I think self-awareness in going into this is very important. Not trust it, not relying too much on the brand or your parents saying, well, okay, you should go to a large company or you should go to a good brand or whatever, but rather saying, I would say you should pick the work content rather than the brand of the company, right? And if you say, well, I'm actually more comfortable in an area where they would let me to say, may I take more time before I come back to an answer with you? There is, both within consulting and outside, plenty of questions for that. But I think the self-awareness of trying to start and saying, well, what am I actually good versus what I want to be good are actually two different things, right? So that's a really mature situation to be in. So that's going to prevent you of picking the wrong first job. But there's still plenty of consulting disciplines that are, I would say, more analytic. For example, our economics consulting practice, right, which our competitors have as well. That's less of a coming in, but that's more what they say, would you do a study for me? Would you report back to me in 6 weeks with the 6 things that we need to consider for our next stage, etc.? So be aware there's different categories in there as well, but you need to find the right one indeed. Maha, pick on someone. This is fun.
Okay. Let me see who hasn't spoken today. Yash Jain.
Yes.
Hello, how are you?
Hi.
I'm good. How are you?
So, is there anything that we haven't addressed for you? Any questions?
Yeah, no, basically, I had many doubts regarding what's consulting, and I would never thought about a career in consulting. So this would be like an eye opener for me. So I'd get to know more about what exactly is consulting.
What's the most interesting thing? What's the most interesting thing that we told you that you didn't know before?
The skills required, like how you need to ask more questions and how you need more on-ground skills, which I think I lack. So that was pretty interesting.
Okay.
It's quite interesting. So thanks, Jess, first of all. So this is the second time that we may have scared you off with this ability to ask questions. So let me put some context, not backtracking on it. You need to be able to do this, but let me put some context around there, right? So the worst consultant is the one that thinks he has the answer before he has been described the problem, right? And there are not many of them because you tend to not live long in the industry. And I think most of my competitor firms also are highly honorable professionals that I would say attempt and often do deliver very, very good work. But I think the combination of understanding a lot of backgrounds and having the ability of going to your client and say, well, tell me about your business. How's your supply chain looking? What might be the issue with your staff base? Are you clear on which markets you want to move into? What would happen if your competitor did that move? And so on. I think those are the type of questions, right? So this is really what it is it's actually, there's a name for it. It's called the Socratean or Platonian method of inquiry, right? It comes from the old Greeks, of basically asking question, and questions are a way of getting the client to describe his problem. So if you really say, well, I would never feel comfortable in a situation to ask a question, if truly you believe that's the case, then yes, you probably would not enjoy being consulting, because you'd get a lot of negative feedback and say, why don't you ask a question? Come ahead, etc. However, and here's a big difference, you often ask questions to which you don't know the answer. Often we ask questions in order to get a confirmation of what the answer is. I ask questions to which I don't know the answer 10 times a day. And I say, I have no clue about your business. Tell me about this. So yes, you need to be able to ask questions, but you don't need to know the answer. So be ponderate in how you assess that. But thanks, Yash. That was some good feedback. Let's pick somebody that thinks that they're going to get away with it because they have not the full name in the email address. ND1003. Hi.
Hi. So I'm from PWC.
Oh, you're from Sorry for that. Well, actually, it would be interesting to hear. But so you're from PWC and you've listened to this now. What do you think? Is it Maha and me creating a big marketing, mirage, and the reality that you've experienced is entirely different? What's the difference?
No, I'm tempted. I want to become a consultant now. I'm thinking I'll quit marketing and join the consulting team.
Coming over, we're hiring, so absolutely.
Perfect.
Guys, I don't want to put you in a difficult situation. Any other questions? Anything else that would be helpful to you? Oh, somebody has a Rishab, I believe you have your hand up. Oh, plenty of people have their hands open now. I just didn't see it. We will start with Mantan Shah. Sorry if I pronounced this poorly.
No, it was spot on. Hi, my name is Manthan. I'm a senior at SPGen. Thank you both for taking the time and sharing your experience with us. My question is a bit broad-based. So it appears from my readings that consulting as a profession is quite recent. Like in the 1960s, 1980s, it got more heat as a career. And right now we're talking about it as the hotspot for graduates to join us in a career. So what do you think is the future in, say, 2050, 2060? What would consulting look like? And how could we be future ready for it? Thank you.
So first of all, very cool questions to what the audience is. So this is a consultant question, first of all. This is a classical question. How do you think your business will look in 60 years, right? So let me share with you what I'm observing and what I'm extrapolating for that. And Maha may have a different view, and then I want to hear her as well. It's actually interesting. I think we're coming towards the end of large companies. So it'll still take 10, 15, 20 years, but I would be surprised if PwC, as a 250,000 people organization, will still exist in its same form in 60 years. Not because we're horrible and we're going to go away, but if you look at how delivery models change, how COVID also, for example, has changed, delocalization, connected remote working, etc., so on, then I think we will increasingly transition into a model that constantly creates new alliances of competence that are more tailor-made for the specific client's needs. So on most of my clients, when I have an assignment of, 6 months or so, it's very rarely just me and PwC. I'll have an engineer with me, or an architect, or a branding agency, or a conservation specialist, etc. And I think that will accelerate and continue. I'm not sure that this is a good thing. So it is a good thing in certain circumstances because it creates much more agility. One thing that your generation may not have anymore, which I may still be okay, Maha maybe, and my father had all the time, is job security. A reasonable expectation that you join a company and that they will take care of you 20, 30, 40 years. Now, some of you may say, or many of you may say, I actually don't need that. But some others may say, actually, I very much would like to know where I'm going to be in 10 years, right? There's no right or wrong there. So basically, I think what we're heading towards is a transformation of consulting into something that very much more takes on the elements of the gig economy. And I see advantages in it, but I also see societal risks that I'm not so excited about. So that's my answer. Maha, what do you see?
I think the last point you made is something that also we're starting to do in PwC, is that our own workforce try and leverage more of the subcontractors, that we're able to better meet the fluctuating demand and supply. In terms of my response, I haven't really thought about how the operating model itself will change, but I think what definitely will happen, especially maybe this is more relevant for this part of the world, as the maturity of clients increases, I think the nature of the services that they request will change. So they're not going to come to us for the more basic stuff that historically they have been relying on consultants for. Definitely that need to be more specialized is going to increase. I think these are the two most things that I see. I haven't thought really beyond that, to be honest. Maybe more paperless work, a lot more technology integration, these kinds of things.
Let's go from my stream left to right. I have 5-10 more minutes, by the way, so don't feel stressed, but you may have hours. But Abhimanyu, I think you are on the left of my screen. I'm just going left to right of my screen. So everybody, I'll get to everyone.
Sure, yeah. Again, would like to say thank you for your time. And I have two questions, actually. So the first one being, just for the benefit of the crowd, what are the different types of consulting? So I heard there are two main branches under which a lot of others fall, which is strategy and OpEx consulting. And how hands-on are consultants, with the projects that they're offered or they take up? Like, let's say, let's say your project is to turn around a loss-making company to a profit-making company. How hands-on are you with that project? Do you directly do the work? I wouldn't say do the work, but directly lay the foundation for the company to do it, or how does that work? And my second question being, you were recently compared consulting and investment banking, and I was just pondering upon. I just want to know what's the difference between a financial advisory consultant and an investment banker. So these are two questions that I had in my mind.
Cool. So let me give you a bad answer to the last one. So I come from Switzerland, right? So we're from a deep banking environment, and we tend to always make fun of the investment bankers, because we say, well, you guys have a big paycheck, but you have very boring jobs. I suspect that's not really the case, right? But I would say the investment bankers are working for their own success, versus we are working for our client success, which is that they're not being unethical at all. That's not what I mean, but they have a very direct profit relation. I don't have a profit, I don't make more money if I give a good or bad solution, but I don't get more work, right? So I can also give bad news. My client will take the bad news, but I think investment banking is a more complicated subject, and you should not in more details talk about what you don't know in detail. To your first, that's for me. For your first point, I'm not sure that split between strategy and operations really works. I think there's a lot of them. I think the pure strategy houses such as McKinsey and so on are, first of all, brilliant people. They truly are, and many of them I would love to have on my team. I think they are at times struggling nowadays because clients want more integrated solutions. They say, well, what good is for you to give me a strategy if you don't help me to implement it, right? And then that goes through a number of stages. I have currently one assignment, which is basically to define the tourism strategy of a country. So very much 50,000 miles in the air. And I'm currently procuring 2 cruise liners for another client of mine, like literally speaking to the cruise line companies and saying, when can they come? How can we fit them out? Let me send you some drawings. Let me do this. So it can be everything from very, very high up to very detailed. And I think that's what I enjoy about my job, right? Because always high up tends to get very abstract. Always underground tends to get repetitive. But the ability of saying, well, depending on where my teams and my firm's skill set is, I can stay with the client for a long time. I mean, some of my clients I've been having for 7 years, right? So those are deep relationships where you accompany them. So there's not a hit or miss answer. I think I get personal job satisfaction to accompany and walk besides my client for a long time. So that means multi-skilled. All right, so I'm going.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Next question on my screen is Aryan. Hi.
Hi, I had a question about when you're faced with a problem. So you said you start with specific circumstances, including the dynamics of the business and the dynamics of the company. So could you elaborate more on that?
Ask me differently.
Okay, fine. How do you go about researching a problem?
Sure. So first of all, the cool thing is you're not alone, right? I mean, this is a firm with a lot of detail, and nobody's got all the answers. So first of all, probably I would not accept an assignment where I know that I am totally out of my depth. I would say, well, this is a healthcare problem. I don't know a lot about healthcare. Let me introduce you to my colleague that is in healthcare. Within there, a lot of the researching of a problem. So when I encounter in my area of expertise in tourism, where I think I'm pretty deep, but I encounter questions all the time, I go to people in my network. I have a huge network that I cultivate and which I deliver much more into than I take out of. That's how you network. But I'll call them and I'll say, well, just the other day, I'm not going to say what the topic was, but the other day I called a gentleman called Michael Levy. Yesterday, he's the founder of a company called Citizen M, one of the most innovative hotel companies. And I was like, so here's this client, I'm not telling you what, that is looking at this part of technology in hotel distribution. What do you think about that, right? And then I go back to my client and say, by the way, I'm not pretending that this is all of mine. It's, I talk to some people, right? So my job is to bring knowledge and insights to my client. I don't need to pretend it's all mine, right? So I talk to people, I read, I research. I also Google and Wikipedia. I often start with Wikipedia, right? That's fine. And I have this argument with my classroom, with my son's classroom teacher. Starting with Wikipedia is perfectly fine. You just got to go to a footnote and next footnote. And that's how you research it, right? And sooner or later, you start seeing that the matrix falls into place and then you see where the core issues of the problem are. But there's no rocket science to it. We don't have a secret program that has the answers.
And I think the bigger skill, so you got the information, but understanding what will and what won't work for your client. I think that's where that contextual understanding becomes very important, because you might read something or somebody might tell you something, but you know it's not going to work for that client because they're not mature enough for it. Maybe they don't have the level of investment required for it. So that's also where the second element becomes more important in consulting.
All right, thank you.
Do I have Rishab still on here?
I had this question that as consultants, you provide the solution to a company, but do you also help the company implementing it, like training the employees and everything?
Yes, often where we are competent to do so. One of the biggest temptations of a consultant, and I have fallen into that trap myself, is to not know when it is time to go to your client and say, now it's time for you to hand it over to a different skill set, because right then the revenue goes away. So you're always tempted to say, and you're also emotionally attached, you want to do this, so you stay with them. But so we have, for example, phenomenal training capabilities, not my team, but our PWC Academy and Maha's team in certain situations, some other ones. In other aspects, we try to do, or we're tempted to do, or in reality, you have to say, now is time to bring in Accenture, right? And your client will love you for it 5 years down the road because he knows that you are with him until you consider that you're no longer the best person. But it's a constant struggle. But there is areas where we implement a lot. Yes, I mean, I've supervised hotel constructions in my past, so I can go deep if need be. Question always is there somebody that can do it better for you?
And also, if as a consultant, I provide a strategy to a company, maybe to increase sales or reduce costs, but it goes haywire and the company goes into losses because of my strategy, then as consultants, what do we have to do to compensate the company?
One moment, colleagues, I need to quickly handle something.
Sorry, I'll just give my 2 cents here. So usually we don't get into compensation, but what we usually do is whenever we give any recommendations, especially recommendations that might have such severe implications, we're always coming up with different assumptions, okay? And we have a very thorough and rigorous approval process, so that at the end of the day, we are not being held liable for any such decisions. We make recommendations based on certain assumptions. We make these assumptions very known to the client. We work with them on the plans that are necessary. We make sure we get all the right approvals. We highlight all the risks that are associated. This is how we cover ourselves. And then at the end of the day, the actual decision becomes the client's responsibility.
So how do you manage to gain that initial trust? Because you don't provide any compensation. Like, I understand why people would like hire like really big companies like Deloitte or something to consult for them, because they've been advising people since a really long time. But then if it was someone like me who was starting new with a consulting firm, how would I gain that initial trust amongst customers, since I'm not really held accountable for the results?
So I think that the
Team, I'm
trust
very
comes
sorry. I have to jump now. I didn't realize that I actually do have a hard stop. Reach out on, so I'm gonna have to drop off now. My LinkedIn is on there. If you have some follow-up questions, send me an invite. I happily invite all of them. Send me a question. I'll be happy to connect after this one.
All right, great. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very
man.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll just finish responding to that question and we'll wrap up. So basically, when you're working with an entire team, and different, we have partners on the team, we have directors, we have senior managers, different layers of management, and usually the accountability for such matters lies with the more senior people. They're the ones that really have that relationship and the trust, and this is where different things are discussed and agreed to and documented. So this really helps protect staff, at more junior levels that are less experienced. And this is how we sort of manage this. And the trust comes over time. The more you work with a client, the more they understand your professional judgment, your expertise. Slowly, you start going to that place where you're able to give specific advice and help guide the client in the right direction. But you will never be left sort of alone to carry on these risks. So we have so many different formalities, R&Q related, that sort of look at all of these potential risks relating to any contract, any client, and help mitigate them accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions?
No, awesome. Just like in conclusion, and a final question, we at SPGen, TAMID at SPGen, it's a premium business club, and most of our students ranging from freshmen to seniors are excited about business. So if anyone is interested in reaching out or working or interning at the PWC or seeking some guidance or mentorship, who would be the best person to reach out to for the club?
I think Nadia might be able to answer this.
Hi, so you can reach out to me and then we can connect you to the relevant teams as and when the opportunity fits.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, I just want to conclude from my side that, again, I've been doing this for such a long time, and there's a reason Nicholas himself told you he's been doing it for a long time. Great career, you learn a lot, not just from the technical front and understanding how different sectors operate, different clients. You learn a lot on a personal and professional level. You develop a lot of good, people skills, sometimes anger management, your patience, dealing with stress, becoming more agile. It's very valuable. And I think the earlier that you come into this field, okay, you really get a very good opportunity to understand this business and to decide early on, is this something that you want to continue over the long haul or not? If you decide it is for you, it gives you the motivation to work hard. Maybe you aspire to become a partner. You're going to be willing to take it, and put the effort that needs to go in to get there. Otherwise, you might decide, this is not the right thing for me, which many people do. Yeah, it happens every day. They realize, no, this is not the right field for me. But especially when you join a firm like PwC, you're still always going to leave with very relevant skills and a very good brand name on your CV that will be used as a very good stepping stone for anything else you decide to go into later on in the future. So it's never a mistake to join consulting. It's definitely worthwhile. And I just wanted to leave you with that. And as Nicholas offered, anytime you have questions, please reach out. You have our emails, you can find us on LinkedIn, and we're more than happy to extend any support necessary to help guide you and help you make the right decisions.
Thank you so much for that, Maha. And, I would like to say on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for your time, as to Nicholas as well, to Ms. Nawal and Ms. Joanne again for, bringing you guys over here. And, we had a quick chat on our internal TAMID, group, and they were all like really saying that you guys, led this presentation, this session without any PPTs, without any direction. And the fact that it was so casual, so candid, it was amazing. Everyone loved it. And, I think that was one of the best sessions we've had, like compared to the previous chapter as well. So yeah, thank you so much for that on behalf of all the TAMID members. And for all the members out there, I'll be sending out their LinkedIns and their email IDs as well, so they can reach out to them. And you guys have any concerns, you guys want to seek some inspiration, and yeah, I think that's about it. Personally, for me, I think you guys have affirmed my career choice of being a consultant, and I'm sure you have inspired all the members over here as well. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you again for your time, and best of luck.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nawal. Thank you.
Bye bye.